want it now, and I ain't never gonna back down.
Hello, welcome to The Rise. I'm Bryant McFadden. On this edition of The Rise, I'm excited to catch up with one of the baddest dudes to ever step between the lines on a football field. I'm talking about the one, the only, Takeo Spikes. Takeo, first and foremost, thank you for joining me. Welcome to The Rise. How you doing? How you feeling?
Man, I'm ready to rise up, B-Mac. I've been waiting on this call. What took you so long?
Hey, did you feel like a draftee waiting to get drafted?
I wouldn't say not as bad because the bag has already been secured, but
No doubt.
It's always good, man, when we get a chance to chop it up, bro. And like, these are the conversations that a lot of people wish they could sit in on.
I love it. I'm fired up as well. I grew up watching you at Auburn, of course, Cincinnati, and throughout your outstanding professional career. So I'm a fan as well, interviewing a guy who I grew up watching and played the defensive football the way that it was supposed to be played, reckless, organized chaos. So I can't wait to tap into this conversation with you. But first and foremost, Takeo, man, let's talk about your name. You have a very, very, very unique name. What is the story and meaning behind your name?
I like talking about this because my mother reminds me all the time. So what she ended up doing, she did research and she believes in the power of names. And she saw the Prime Minister of Japan at the time on TV, and his name was Takeo Spikes. So after she did research and found out what the name meant, it was great warrior, hero in Japanese. And so from that point, she was like, all right, Takeo Spikes is royalty in Japan, so I'm going to have royalty here in the U.S. in Georgia. And so that's the reason why she named me that. And she said for that, he will be my little great warrior. And I guess she also told me, she was like, boy, you will forever be in debt for me giving you that name because you lived up to it. And imagine if I would have gave you another name. So I was like, Mom, you know what? You're right on this one. So I give you that.
No question you live up to the name. And I know everyone associated with you, they're proud of everything you've been able to do and the things that you're doing currently. So that's a unique, great story, by the way. And talking about, here in America and where you grew up in Sandersville, Georgia, near Augusta, right? Tell me about your family and how sports became such a big part of your life when you were young.
I grew up with a family of four, three other siblings, two older brothers and a younger sister. And so I was really the only one who really took up sport. And I was following my brother, the one who was closest to me, Eric. And I just fell in love with the game at a young age. And so one day they decided to play football in the street. They threw a pass and it was like out of bounds. But I did like the toe touch grab. I remember catching it with my hands and I had my feet in bounds, which were still in the street. And I remember after that catch, they was like, man, you can ball. You really can play football, huh? And I was like, yeah. But it came natural to me. So from that point, I became infatuated with, like, how can I leave my mark in the hood today? Yeah. That's where it all started.
And Sandersville is a mining town. It's where sheetrock for construction is a big product. The people there are blue collar, hardworking. Do you think that mentality shaped the kind of football player you became?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I actually worked in the mines my
you
senior
did?
year in high school.
How was that experience?
That's the reason why I played football. And I didn't care how hard it may have gotten in college. I knew I didn't want to go back home and do what my father did. That's what he did damn near all of his life. He had to quit school in 6th grade. And he made sure that not only myself, but my two brothers and my sister, that we were not going to go down the same path as him. And we were going to do everything, control everything that we could control. And anything that you couldn't control, it was two things. Don't worry about it, and then get on your knees and pray about it. And that was it.
Looking at what you had to do growing up in high school, seeing how that mining life was and how hard it was, football was the direction you wanted to go. So who introduced you to organized football, and when did you start playing organized football?
I started playing organized football when I was 7 years old. And my father just took me to practice one day, and he just stayed there, never really said anything, but I guess he saw like that really intrigued me and that captured my attention. And so really from that point, that's what really got me on the hook, because it was a way to play organized football, the same street story that I was playing in the street.
Yeah.
Like that turned into organized football with all of the cats from my hood, you know, in Sandersville.
And talk about your teammates that you played with in Pee Wee and how you guys became a force as you went through your middle school years.
Playing at a young age with all of the guys like in the street, all of the guys that I eventually played with in middle school, like that's the reason why we were so good, because we all played with each other for so long, and we all knew each other, and we knew how to talk to each other, and we knew what the expectations was going to be. And so ultimately at the end of the day, we just needed somebody to steer the ship in the right direction, but allow us to have ownership of the ship too as well. And that's the reason why ultimately the end result, we won state championships in high school.
Takeo's college decision and how he was lured out of his home state of Georgia after this.
I committed to Florida State, but bro, when I went to the plains of Auburn, I was like, it feels like Waco.
Welcome back to The Rise with Takeo Spikes. You went to high school there in Sandersville. The name of your high school was Washington County. Tell us a little bit about being able to be a part of that foundation that created and led to state championships in the state of Georgia.
I remember my 9th grade year, I had no aspirations of going to, honestly, I'm just like straight up, I didn't have any aspirations of going to I wanted to go to the NFL, but really, I just thought, because you only can be what you see. And what I saw, what I saw was exactly what came before me. All the guys who preceded me. So 9th grade, our head coach had to come from, he was the principal. So he came onto the football field and he was the coach. And we ended up going 8-2, got knocked out the first round of the playoff. But the next year, it truly was a blessing to see our principal go out and hire this coach by the name of Rick Tomberlin. He brought and put together a great staff, and everybody played off of each other very well. He came in and he leaned heavily on Robert. And that was the first time seeing Robert Edwards play, and we had structure. And man, little did we know, we went 14-0, made it to the championship game. We lost, but that was the first time I ever saw Bobby Bowden. That was the first time I saw Terry Bowden. That was the first time I saw Ray Goff. I'm talking about, we saw Philip Fulmer. All of the coaches in the SEC came to the small town, Washington County, Waco, Sandersville, Georgia. And so from that, bro, I had so much belief. From that point, I was like, hold up. So if Robert's doing this, I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to add more intensity to it, and let me just see where it takes me. Yeah. And, bro, and that's what I did.
Oh, man, and you taking me back, because you were naming some legendary, iconic college coaches that came there, like you said, Sandersville, to watch you and Robert put in work. So talk about your recruiting process. As you mentioned, your teammate Robert Edwards was a great running back, went on to the University of Georgia. Did you feel pressure to stay in the state of Georgia? And how did you end up choosing War Eagle, Auburn?
Man, Georgia couldn't pay me enough. Nah, I'm joking with you, bro. No, but the reason why I truly didn't go is because I wanted to go somewhere to where I made a mark, a name for myself. I wanted to lay down my own foundation. I actually committed to Florida State because
I didn't know that.
I committed to Florida State And I came for a visit, had the best time of my life. Derek Brooks was my host. And so I was like, man, I'm coming. But, bro, when I went to the plains of Auburn, I was like, man, it feels like Waco. And it felt like, I was like, these guys went 11-0. Then the next year they went 9-1-1. And I was like, who are the ballers on this team?
Yeah.
And the only person you heard about was Steven Davis, Bo Nix, and Frank Sanders. Defensively, they were killing it, but you couldn't name nobody outside of the DBs. So I was like, that's where I'm going to make my mark. And that's the reason why I truly went to Auburn.
More with Takeo Spikes when we come back.
Like, that was my SEC moment, and I'm running around with like a chicken with my head cut off.
Welcome back to The Rise. Going to Auburn, do you have a welcome to the SEC moment?
I did, bro. I did. So I came in, we had, you probably remember him, Martavius Houston. This cat came in and he was starting. And I was like, man, I need to be starting too. So every day I'm grinding. Finally, the starting linebacker, Jason Miska, he had messed up on some assignments. And so he put me in. And so I went out there and I'm talking about production. I got played like the last 2 quarters, ended up having like double-digit tackles. The next week now I'm starting. See, what I didn't realize was, when you're a backup, man, nothing really is expected of you. Is just really to come in and just make a few plays.
Yeah.
But when you start the game, I had the Mike linebacker position. So for me, I had to go in and call the plays. I had to know exactly what I had to do, what somebody else was doing, and why I had to do it. And I got exposed. I think we were playing against Kentucky. Like, that was my SEC moment of getting kind of manhandled just because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, and I'm running around with like a chicken with my head cut off.
Well, I can tell you this much. Preparation was something that you leaned on outside of that experience, because your last 2 seasons at Auburn, you led them in tackles. You actually had 14 stops in the SEC championship game against who? Do you remember?
Tennessee, baby.
Who was in the backfield for Tennessee? Quarterback, running back?
Oh, man. Peyton Manning and Jamal Lewis. Listen, and that was one of the best games I ever played, too, in that SEC championship game.
And that game right there, I remember it like it was yesterday as well. And it was star after star on both sides of the football. And clearly, you guys should have won that ball game. I don't want to bring that back up to you because I know it probably still give you some bad dreams, but y'all should have won that ball game.
Bro, we had 4 turnovers.
Yep.
4 turnovers, and we lost by 1 point.
1 point.
I had 14 tackles, 2 forced fumbles that both went back for a touchdown.
And if you take away one of those turnovers, instead of having 4, having 3, you're winning that ball game easily.
Easily, man. Peyton Manning should owe me a little something for that, because that helped him. Like, he was great anyway, but Peyton, you need to send me something. Send me something.
No question.
A bottle of wine or something, bro. Like, that goes down as one of the best SEC championship games of all time because they still show it.
No question, no question. And so you talk about that ball game, SEC. I agree with you. I think that was one of the best games you ever put up in your collegiate career. And because of that, you got drafted in the first round to the Cincinnati Bengals. Talk about your draft night.
So I remember this, sitting down in Planet Hollywood. That's when Planet Hollywood was the thing. And I remember after Jacksonville picked Fred Taylor, the phone rung, and it was the Atlanta Falcons. Hey, would you like to be a Falcon? If you there, we're going to get you. And I'm like, hell yeah. Paul Tagliabue get up with the 12th pick of the 1998 NFL Draft. The Atlanta Falcons select linebacker. I'm like, yes! Out of Georgia Tech. And I was like, no. Keith Brooking.
Brooking.
And I was like, But they I was like, they just called me. So I'm like, man. So, bro, as soon as I put my head down and I was like, I asked my agent, I was like, hey, who got the next pick? Soon as I said pick, the phone rung. I pick it up, one of our good friends. How you doing, young fella? This is Dick LeBeau. I said, how you doing, Coach LeBeau? He was like, listen, you ready to be a Bengal because we're about to draft you? I was like, absolutely, Coach, and this is the best move you made. Trust me, because I'm going to give you everything I got. Man, it was an amazing night because everything that you and I have talked about, I think about my father. I think about the struggle that he went through. I think about my mother. That's the reason why I was so happy about it.
The Rise with Takeo Spikes returns after these messages.
I wanted to create a legacy piece that really spoke to all of the guys that came before me who inspired me. So I came up with this crazy idea. I say, I want to go behind the mask.
You are watching The Rise on Origin Sports. Let's go to that historic 2004 season for you. You were named to the All-Pro team. What an honor being known to be one of the best of the best. How relieving was that for you, getting the recognition of being one of the best in the world to do it in your position?
Man, it was huge, bro, because, keep in mind, I got drafted to Cincinnati, small market. Cincinnati ain't winning no games. That's another negative. And so when you're not winning games and you're in a small market, nobody sees what you do. The only people who see what you do on a consistent basis are the people who cover the game. And so being recognized as one of the best linebackers in the game, it was such an honor because that's what I strive to be. And to be honest, that really wasn't one of my it was one of my better seasons, but it wasn't my best season. Like, I felt like everything, the structure, waking up in the morning, hanging out late at night, making sure I get up when I knew other guys were still sleeping. Like, that was the part to where, okay, now it's finally coming into fruition. And so it was everything that I had wished for. Yeah. It finally came to me, and I embraced it, bro. Really did embrace it.
And looking at your career, I mean, you played in 219 regular season ball games without a playoff appearance, and clearly that was not your fault. That's the most in NFL history. But do you oftentimes think back on what could have been if you played for more established organizations throughout your professional career?
I used to think about it a lot, and the only time I think about it now is when somebody brings it up. Did you never want to be that bitter dude? Like, man, if I was this, well, if. Yeah. I don't like to live off the if word here because it just prolongs everything what you really want to do. But I'm gonna play off of it right now since you asked me. Dog, let me just put this into perspective for not only you but for the people who are listening.
Yep.
For me to be on the Hall of Fame ballot, which is a huge honor, to never have played in a playoff game. I never played on Monday Night Football until year 10.
Wow.
Let me say that again.
Wow.
I didn't play on Monday Night Football until year 10. Bro.
Yeah.
It was, I probably would be in the Hall of Fame right now. I would. I would be in the Hall if I was on any other team. But, it's fine. I think I'm going to have to wait some years, and I'm okay with that because
and
it
my
is
thing
what
is
it
this.
is.
I agree with you, and then hopefully this could be an opportunity to create some traction for Takeo Spikes to be able to get closer to football heaven, as I like to call it. Takeo, you've done a phenomenal job in your career. But now that you left the game of football, you ventured off into another element, and you have been dominated in that as well when it comes to the media world. Behind the Mask podcast is your podcast. You do a great job talking sports, talking entertainment. But outside of that, it's one unique thing I want to tap in with: photography. I didn't know you had a love for photography as well.
B-Man, I appreciate that, man, because obviously you know the work that goes inside of it or into it, and it's a lot. Behind the Mask started 4 or 5 years ago. I wanted to create a legacy piece that really spoke to all of the guys that came before me who inspired me. So I came up with this crazy idea. I say, I want to go behind the mask with some of the best players that ever played the game. And oh, by the way, Volume 1 was going to be dedicated to linebackers. And basically, man, what I ended up doing with that was I went around for 2 years. I interviewed some of the best that ever played the game. Mike Singletary, Harry Carson, Ted Hendricks, Kevin Green, old-time Steeler. Dope. God bless his soul. You know, Derek Brooks. And I went around and I really challenged them because I wanted to hear their story of how did they become great, what made them such an outlier, their trials and tribulations, how did they turn it around to the point to where it led them to become the man who they are today. And so that project went well. And then I was like, you know what, the pandemic hadn't hit at that time. So I was like, I'm going to start telling these stories. I was working on Volume 2 of the book, which was going to be running backs. The pandemic happened. And so I was sitting down talking with a good friend of mine, another NFL legend, Tutan Reyes. And so I was like, Tutan, he played offensive line. I was like, bro, this is what I'm thinking. And he was like, man, put it in a podcast. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And so that's how Behind the Mask podcast was started. But it started off of my photography coffee table book, Behind the Mask, Volume 1, dedicated to linebackers. I urge everybody to pick that up, and you can find that on Amazon.
Thank you, Takeo, man. It's been a pleasure, man. Coming from a fellow defensive player, I want to tell you how much I appreciate the example you set for me and other players with your lunch bucket mentality. It's been a pleasure having you here on The Rise with me. I really enjoyed this moment, a candid conversation with one of the best to ever do it, not in the collegiate level, but the NFL level as well. So I appreciate you for your time. B-Mac,
man, I appreciate the opportunity, brother. Anytime we get a chance to chop it up, man, I'm here for you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Be sure to check in for more Rise shows and other original programming and memorable games on Origin Sports. I'm Bryant McFadden. Thanks for joining us.